Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kaviviretam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grinantiye Bhuridajana. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which is the English translation of Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita. I'll read, and at any time, if you have a comment, a question, observation, just raise your hand and jump right in. Page 184 in my book. The date is 9th March 1883. 9th March 1883. It was a Friday. So as usual, I'll read for a while and then I'll start commenting on what we have read and you jump in. Friday, 9th March 1883. About 9 o'clock in the morning, the master was seated in his room with Rakhal, M, and a few other devotees. It was the day of the new moon. As usual with him on such days, Sri Ramakrishna entered again and again into communion with the Divine Mother. That means into ecstasy actually. He said to the devotees, God alone exists and all else is unreal. The Divine Mother has kept all deluded by her Maya. Look at men. Most of them are entangled in worldliness. They suffer so much, but still they have the same attachment to lust and gold. The camel eats thorny shrubs, and blood gushes from its mouth. Still, it will eat thorns. While suffering pain at the time of delivery, a woman says, I shall never go to my husband again. But afterwards she forgets. The truth is, no one seeks God. There are people who eat the prickly leaves of the pineapple and not the fruit. Devotee, Sir, why has God put us in the world? Master, the world is the field of action. Through action one acquires knowledge. The Guru instructs the disciple to perform certain works and refrain from others. Again he advises the pupil to perform action without desiring the result. The impurity of the mind is destroyed through the performance of duty. It is like getting rid of a disease by means of medicine, under the instruction of a competent physician. Why doesn't God free us from the world? He will free us when the disease is cured. He will liberate us from the world when we are through with the enjoyment of lust and gold. Once a man registers his name in the hospital, he cannot run away. The doctor will not let him go away unless his illness is completely cured. During these days, Sri Ramakrishna's heart overflowed with motherly love like the love Yashoda felt for Krishna. So he kept Rakhal with him. Rakhal felt towards the master as a child feels towards its mother. He would sit leaning on the master's lap as a young child leans on its mother while suckling her breast. Rakhal was thus seated by the master when a man entered the room and said that a high tide was coming in the Ganges. The master and the devotees ran to the Panchavati to see it. At the sight of a boat being tossed by the tide, Sri Ramakrishna exclaimed, Look, I hope nothing happens to it. They all sat in the Panchavati. The master asked M to explain the cause of the tide. M drew on the ground the figures of the sun, moon and earth and tried to explain gravitation, ebb tide, flow tide, new moon, full moon, eclipse and so forth. Master to M, Stop it! I can't follow you. It makes me dizzy. My head is aching. Well, how can they know of things so far off? You see, during my childhood, I could paint well, but arithmetic would make my head spin. I couldn't learn simple arithmetic. Sri Ramakrishna returned to his room with the devotees. Looking at a picture of Yashoda on the wall, he said, It is not well done. She looks like a garland seller. The master enjoyed a nap after his noon meal. Adhar and other devotees gradually gathered. This was Adhar's first visit. He was a deputy magistrate and about 30 years old. Adhar to the master, "Sir, I have a question to ask. Is it good to sacrifice animals before the deity? It certainly involves killing." Master, "The Shastra prescribes sacrifice on special occasions. Such sacrifice is not harmful. Take, for instance, the sacrifice of a goat on the 8th day of the full moon or the new moon. I am now in such a state of mind that I cannot watch a sacrifice. Also, I cannot eat meat offered to the Divine Mother. Therefore, I first touch my finger to it and then to my head, lest she be angry with me. Again, in a certain state of mind, I see God in all beings, even in an ant. At that time, if I see a living being die, I find consolation in the thought that it is the death of the body, the soul being beyond life and death. One shouldn't reason too much. It is enough if one loves the lotus feet of the Mother. Too much reasoning throws the mind into confusion. You get clear water if you drink from the surface of a pond. Put your hand deeper and stir the water, and it becomes muddy. Therefore, pray to God for devotion." Behind Dhruva's devotion, there was desire. He practiced austerities to gain his father's kingdom. But Prahlada's love for God was motiveless, a love that sought no return. A devotee, "How can one realize God?" Master, "Through that kind of love. But one must force one's demand on God. One should be able to say, 'O God, wilt thou not reveal thyself to me? I will cut my throat with a knife.' This is the tamas of bhakti." Devotee, "Can one see God?" Master, "Yes, surely. One can see both aspects of God, God with form and without form. One can see God with form, the embodiment of spirit. Again, God can be directly perceived in a man with a tangible form. Seeing an incarnation of God is the same as seeing God himself. God is born on earth as a man in every age." Okay, there's a lot to be going on with. There's so much here. So first he points out, what is the truth about this world we stay in, which we are right here? What's the truth about this? And Sri Ramakrishna says, God alone exists and all else is unreal. And then he says that people are enmeshed in the maya of the Divine Mother. And they are all enmeshed in lust and gold. And he gives an example, the two examples, three actually. The camel which eats the thorny shrubs and its lips bleed, but that's what it wants to eat. So it'll go back there again and again, though it suffers. Exactly like that. We, in the world, we keep going back again and again to the world for satisfaction, for fulfillment. And we get hurt. We are unfulfilled. There is no end. Nobody has ever been fulfilled, by chasing wealth or power. Or I often say that in the United States I've lived in three interesting places. First was in Hollywood, where so the three places are Hollywood, in Manhattan, and at Harvard in Boston. So in Hollywood, success is glamour. How close are you to the movie industry? Which movie were you in? Or even if you're not in the movies, whom do you know? Who is in the movie industry? That's the acme of success, or it's glamour. And then in Manhattan, it's money. Nobody is all that interested in which movie you're in, though it's actually New York is more movie industry than even Hollywood is. But anyway, it's money. Are you a millionaire? Are you a billionaire? Somebody pointed out to me that's called Billionaires Row. And another time, somebody pointed out one apartment building. We were going past it, and he said that all of the apartments here are occupied by billionaires, and that's glamour and success here. Are you a millionaire or a billionaire? And at Harvard, it's not money, it's not glamour, it's learning. Are you on the top of the food chain? Are you the head of the department, or are you most cited? Especially if you have a Nobel Prize, I remember in Berkeley, the Swami took me, our ashram is just at the gates of the University of the UC Berkeley. So he took me for a walk inside, and he said that they have a special parking lot for Nobel Prize winners. So you get to park there if you've got a Nobel Prize, and not otherwise. So he wanted to show me that, and he asked one of those people, in the information booths, where is the parking lot for Nobel Prize, for the Nobel laureates? And the man misunderstood. He thought we were asking, why is there parking? Maybe he thought we didn't find parking and we are mad at him. Why is there a whole parking lot for Nobel Prize winners? And he said, oh, no, it's just to encourage them, as if they are like kids who need to be encouraged to study a little more. It's not so bad, just to encourage them. So these are the different ways in which people seek fulfillment. Now, does it give fulfillment? It does to some extent. If you are rich and famous and learned, well, okay. But are they really happy? In most cases, you will find no. They have other kinds of problems. There are the problems of poverty, problems of prosperity. You find this in poor countries and in rich countries also. Problems of poverty, problems of prosperity. Is nobody happy in Hollywood, Manhattan, or at Harvard? No, that's also not true. I have found, in general, those who have some kind of a higher pursuit, they have some measure of happiness. Higher pursuit would be, just knowledge itself, not knowledge for being the head of the department or getting the Nobel Prize or something, or especially some kind of spiritual quest in their lives. Then there is some measure of meaning, some meaning in their lives. Otherwise, you can be a very learned person with extraordinary qualifications and respected in your field, and can be very unhappy, deeply unhappy. I've met such people. You wouldn't believe the tragedies that people undergo. Can be very rich and terribly unhappy. You can be very famous and terribly unhappy. That everybody knows, because famous people are famous because there are lots of publicity. So their unhappiness is also publicized. Yeah. So people rush to this world like the camel rushing back to the same thorny bushes, and repeat again and again. And he gives the example of a woman in childbirth. Third example of the man who eats the prickly leaves and not the delicious pineapple, the fruit, but just eats the leaves. That's the problem. You might say, I'm not interested in your God or spirituality. What the world offers to me is good enough. Especially if you are young, if you are relatively rich or relatively successful, things are going well for you. Especially if you are young. Then such silly statements are common, Somebody wrote to me saying that my 14-year-old daughter said, why this quest for overcoming suffering? Because, I keep saying Vedanta, the goal is to overcome suffering, transcend suffering. So he must have told his daughter. And his daughter said, why try to overcome suffering? You get happiness in the world, you take the unhappiness also, and why should you even try to overcome it? If you're unhappy in the world, take that also. And this man said, I don't know what to say to her. For God's sake, she's 14. Children should be seen, not heard. Literally. She's 14. I pray to the Lord that she doesn't have to face unhappiness in her life. And that moment when there's unhappiness in your life, you'll never say, I'll take the unhappiness also, fine. I got candies and sweet things in life, and I get a kick out of, blows and kicks from life, that's also fine. Nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says it. But the problem is we keep going back to the same activities, the same sources of trying to get happiness, because either we don't know that there's something else better, or even if we know, we are not convinced. Somebody might say that, yeah, I know the problem with the world is, this is life, what can you do? Make hay while the sun shines, and you have to take the good with the bad. And that's good at 14. It's not a good philosophy for a thinking person, a sensitive person. Especially when there is a way out, there is a higher life. And all of humanity's civilizations have talked about it. Every civilization across the world. Great religions of humanity, every religion is basically, that's the message, that there is a higher life, a better way of existing. You don't have to suffer so. Life doesn't have to be meaningless. Life can be meaningful, can be consistently joyful. So that is the promise of spiritual life. Not religion in general, but at the core of all religions, all the great world traditions. And even when I say great world traditions, I'm recalling Aldous Huxley in his book, The Perennial Philosophy. In one of the early chapters, he says, this idea about non-duality. You are Brahman, this oneness between the human and the divine. He says it's a sort of received wisdom that this is a sort of final evolution of philosophy, theology, of mysticism. He says, I don't think so. He says, I don't think so. He says, and it makes great sense, he says that I am quite convinced that even the most primitive, the earliest cultures, what we would call the first peoples, they all had this truth. They didn't have it with your fancy philosophy and non-duality and all that, but intuitively they had this truth, and there were people who were enlightened in those cultures, in those prehistoric times also. So it's as old as humanity. So 3 examples he gives. And then he says, the truth is no one seeks God. So the inevitable question is, but then why has God put us in this world? Why are we here then, if it's so horrible and then nobody is seeking God? And Sri Ramakrishna says the world is the field of action. Through action one acquires knowledge. The Guru instructs the disciple. So do this, don't do that. And then again he advises this action without desires, nishkama karma, purification of the mind. And he gives the example of getting rid of disease by medicine. There's a lot packed in here actually. The beginning of religion is morality, ethics. So in this world, this is the place to practice ethics. That's why he says the teacher teaches the disciple about action. The first teaching is do this and don't do that. That's the beginning of religion. Do's and don'ts. Which turn most of us off from religion, but that's the beginning of religion. Do's and don'ts, morality, ethics. Why? Why is ethics the beginning of religion? Why can't you be spiritual without being an ethical person? You cannot. You can be a good person without being particularly spiritual, but you cannot be a spiritual person without being a good person. Why not? It's this. Ethics is nothing other than an appreciation of the power of causality, that actions have consequences. I saw this little kid walking ahead of me in Central Park, and he had a toy. He was walking past a lawn with a fence. He's a toddler. He was toddling along with the toy, and then casually tossed the toy over the fence, and went flying over and fell on the other side. His father was walking with the pram nearby, and the kid saw that, was bewildered for a moment. Now he wanted the toy back, but he can't get it. There's a fence. Then he burst into tears. That's the superpower of kids, And he burst into tears, pointed at the toy. And the father just shrugged and he said, actions have consequences, buddy. Can't do anything about it. And I said, karma. And he said, he's right, it's karma. Straight away, a lesson in karma. They might think that's cruel, but anyway, after some time the father went around to the gate and then but he let the kid get it back for himself. They went around and he stood, but the kid ran for it and got the toy and got it back. But yes, so actions have consequences. Now, that seems like a no-brainer, but we don't understand it. Even some of the most intelligent people among us don't understand this. Don't understand means in a theoretical way we understand it. Whereas where other people are concerned, we understand it. But not for ourselves. We somehow feel we can cheat this law. Now, our actions won't have consequences. There's an ancient saying, the law of karma. Good, good, bad, bad. So, deliberately done good action results in what we call punya or merit, and that results in sukha, happiness. Deliberately done mischievous action, adharma, results in what we call papa, demerit. And that results in dukkha, suffering in our lives. That's a kind of moral law. And there's a saying that everybody wants the results of good karma without doing the karma. And everybody wants to do the bad karma without the results of bad karma. It's like a deliberate violation of causality. I remember this experiment which was conducted originally by the marshmallow experiment. Who was it done by? The 1960s. I forget. Very well-known psychologist. And then, Walter? No, it's Walter something else. You're right. You're pretty close. I forget. Walter Mischel. Walter Mischel. Yes. And then it was repeated recently, and you can see those cute videos online. It was by this very famous psychologist whose books are standard textbooks in all psychology classes. He repeated those experiments. The experiment is very simple, You put a marshmallow before a little kid, 4 or 5 years, and there's a reason why they have to be 4 or 5 years, not more than that, not less than that. Because at that age, they begin to understand the instructions, and yet they don't have full control over themselves. So, do you want a marshmallow? And the kid says yes. Do you want 2? And every kid says yes, and that's being recorded. You can see that. Then the psychologist says that, all right, I'll put 1 marshmallow before you, and I'm going out for some work. I'll be back. You wait. If you wait and you don't eat that marshmallow, I'll give you 2. Then you can eat 2 marshmallows. Now the interesting thing is, every kid said, I want 2. Every kid said, I will wait. But the interesting thing was, not all kids could wait. The psychologist leaves the room, and then you can see the videos. You see it on YouTube, marshmallow experiment. It's very, very cute, very funny. The kids, some of them, they stare so helplessly at the door. Because at that age, if somebody's gone for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it's an age, it's an eternity. Some kids, they distract themselves from the marshmallow by playing games or something like that. Some stare helplessly at the marshmallow and then eat it. And there was one little kid who said, I'll wait. And the moment the psychologist was out of the door, he says, I didn't even close the door. He ate it immediately. Not only that, when the psychologist came back, he said, give me the next one. Give me the other one. Clearly no understanding of causality. That if you do this, you will get this. Now what Walter Mischel did was, he just recorded. The initial experiments were not videotaped, it was just recorded. Who ate the marshmallow, who did not. Then he followed up the kids over 20 years of their lifespan. And he found, on the average, this is on the average, the kids who were able to control their desire for the marshmallow and did not eat it as promised, and they got the second marshmallow, they did well on almost every aspect of life. In studies, in sports, in whatever demanded a little bit of effort. They were also the popular kids. The parents and teachers had no problem with them. And the kids who ate the marshmallow, again, on the average, again, you can't pick out individual kids. On the average, they were the ones who did not do the homework, who were out partying, who didn't listen to... they would make a commitment and not hold on to it. Basically, that's the thing. Make a commitment, not hold on to it. And the psychologist pointed out, the second set of experiments, this understanding or lack of understanding of causality. That if I hold back, the ability to postpone gratification, this is the word used, ability to postpone gratification. If I hold back now and put in some effort, the end result is going to be better and more. 2 marshmallows instead of 1. And that's real. But the problem is, what's in front is literally sensorily real. And the other thing is a matter of understanding. Those who were able to follow through with their understanding, they did well throughout preschool, school, grade school, university, and probably later on in life and in jobs and families, whatever. This is the understanding, the psychology behind karma, to a greater degree. This is from positive psychology. In Vedanta, there are these 4 categories of people they talk about. One is called the pamara, the instinctive person. The person who follows the pleasure instinct straight away. Fear or pleasure, whatever it is, follows it straight away. And it could be a highly educated person. It could be a kid. So and they have a whole range from the addict who lives for the next hit, next bit of alcohol or drugs, to the person who's might be an expert in some field and can't help plagiarizing other people's work. It could be a whole range of people, but they can't help themselves. So that's called pamara, instinctive. So they just live for what is called artha kama. Artha means pleasure, kama means pleasure, artha means wealth, success. They'll do anything for that. As long as the police or the IRS doesn't catch them, then they're okay. The next level is those who understand causality. They also want pleasure and success in this world. They're all worldly people, the same category Sri Ramakrishna talks about. But they know that if they live a moral life, an ethical life, then it's a sustainable life. Luckily, most people in society fall in this category. What you would call, at least they think of themselves as decent people. We have some standards. We won't sing to. There are certain things that we won't do, even if it promises you instant success. So that second level is called dharmika vishayi. Vishayi, worldly person, one who wants worldly things. But dharmika, they have a code of honor, they have a certain moral standard, and they understand causality. Good karma brings good thing. You put in the effort, you will get something out of it. So these are people who generally build up their lives, on the average successful, better communities, better families, better jobs, and so on. I mean, they do well in life. Then comes the third level according to Vedanta, which is where the positive psychology hasn't gone yet, just beginning to sort of, is what Sri Ramakrishna calls those who understand that even this kind of worldly, sustainable, good worldly life will not give you fulfillment. There is a higher spiritual purpose. God realization, enlightenment, whatever you call it. So the third level is called sadhaka. Sadhaka means spiritual seeker, spiritual practitioner. What's the difference between them and the earlier stage? They still want worldly things. They're still going to the thorny bush. Maybe they're just careful not to get cut so much. A careful camel. Who's still nibbling on the same thorny bushes, but this person realizes there's something higher beyond all this. And so their goal is moksha, enlightenment, not pleasure or wealth, not artha and kama, but dharma and moksha. And then finally there's a fourth level, which is called siddha, perfected one, who is not pursuing any goal, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, already enlightened. Yes. So in Vedanta there are these four. Now in these four, the top and the bottom are those who don't understand causality. The bottom, because they somehow feel that it won't work in my case. I can do whatever I like and I'll escape the consequences. And the top, the siddha, enlightened one, who sees causality for what it is. It's maya. It's not real. Causality. So they are beyond causality. And so there's a difference between being childlike and childish. The bottom the one is childish. Children can be childish, that's cute. But when you are above, say, 16, at 60, you can't be childish, that's not cute anymore. It can be destructive. So that is the bottom, they don't understand causality. And the top, they understand and they see that it's beyond causality. Reality is beyond causality. They are childlike, but not childish. In between are the people who understand causality. The one group understands causality and is applying it to doing well in the world. And the other group knows that even this doing well in the world is limited. They want to get the real stuff, enlightenment, God realization. They also apply causality. Sadhaka means person who understands that doing spiritual practices leads to spiritual results. Then, yes.
But isn't Brahman in all these four already?
Yes. Not only in, it is all of them. It is all of them. That's the whole game of life. Let me just add one little bit, and I went on and on, but I'll just compress. What Sri Ramakrishna is trying to say here is the levels of spiritual practice, deeper and deeper. The first level is ethics, and that has to be based on an understanding of karma and causality. Clean up your life, be ethical, be moral. Those do's and don'ts are very helpful there. You don't have to follow a particular code and follow the law. That's always a good idea. And follow your own particular code of conduct at least have a sense of decency or morality. If you particularly follow a religion, then religions do prescribe codes of conduct. Then he says the next level is, see, this first level is, I am doing good so that I get good in return. The next level is, I don't want worldly returns. I am doing good because it purifies me, makes me more spiritual, more able to pursue spiritual practice better. I can meditate better, I can pray more genuinely to God. God becomes a reality for me. And so that's why I am doing a karma, the same karma, but I'm doing it selflessly, maybe as a worship of God or for the welfare of others, not for myself anymore. So from the Sanskrit words are very instructive. Sakama karma to nishkama karma. Sakama means with desire. I am honest, I am a good person, but I have worldly desires. That's fine. If you have worldly desires, you will get the world. And you will get it in a more sustainable way than the impulsive, the person who doesn't understand the causality. And then you must go from there to, I am good because it is good to be good, not because it will get me something, because I am no longer interested in the prizes that the world has to offer. I have seen through it. Now I am interested in something which is God realization, enlightenment. That becomes my project in life. Still causality applies there, but it's now a higher kind of causality, higher kind of karma. It is called nishkama karma, selfless action. Yeah, all right, I'll stop there. Somebody had a question at the back? Yes, Ram Gopal. Why is it disconnect? So, age-old question of humanity. And the direct answer is disconnect is because of our impurity of mind. So Ramakrishna says the whole point of these spiritual practices is to purify ourselves. What is the impurity of mind? Such strong conditioning of the mind. I want that thing. It could be relationships, it could be gadgets, it could be drugs or alcohol, whatever it is that I am unreasonably attached to. I want it. Even though I intellectually know there are limits, I will not get fulfillment from this, and there are terrible consequences of this, even then I do it. See, I think it was Plato or Aristotle who said to know the good is to be good. And we immediately react by saying, no, that's not true. To know the good is to be good. What is good I know, and I'll do that in my life, definitely. But we immediately protest and say that that's not true, because that's the whole problem in human life. We know what is good, but we are not good. Why not? So the philosopher had a great point here. If you were truly rational, if you were in possession of your faculties, then once you clearly know what something is good, you would do it. But the very fact that we know something and we clearly understand it and still we don't do it, or we know that we shouldn't do it and we keep on doing it, that shows something is wrong. This whole question of guilt, how strange is guilt? I did something. Now I am self-critical about myself. How could I have done that? How could I have said that? How strange. You did it. It's almost like we are two persons. So where does that come from? That comes from impurity of mind. Krishna, so this is a difference, I mentioned it earlier, in the Mahabharata, the Gita, people think that Krishna taught the Gita to Arjuna, but he should have taught the Gita to the villains, the bad guys. What's the point in teaching the scriptures to a good person? The person is going to be good anyway. And your credit is if you can turn the bad guy around. But Krishna did try to teach Duryodhana, the villain, but the result was not good. Before the war, Krishna goes and tells Duryodhana, the villain, because of whom the war took place, that what you are doing is not dharma. It is against dharma, it's against righteousness. You shouldn't do this. And Duryodhana's reply was, I know that. I know what I'm doing is wrong. He's really honest. But my problem is not that I don't know what is right and wrong. I know what is right and wrong. But my problem is, what is right, I don't feel like doing it. And what is wrong, I can't stop myself from doing it. That's my problem. And Krishna had no answer to that. Why no answer? Because no question was asked. Question should have been, how do I change this? How do I set myself right? Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita asks the exact same question. impelled by what force does a man unwillingly do wrong things again and again? Anichannapi varshneya baladeva niyojita. Why does a person do wrong things even though not willing, has made up his mind that I will, resolution, New Year's resolution, I won't do this anymore, I won't behave like that anymore, and so on and so forth, and commits the same error again and again, as if by some force within. This force within, Duryodhana also noted, that verse is there, Janami dharma nacha me pravritti, janami adharma nacha me nivritti. I know what is dharma, I don't feel like doing it. I know what is adharma, I can't stop myself from doing it. Why not? Kenapi devena hridisthitena yatha niyojito asmi tatha karomi. There's some force, some psychic power within me. As it is impelling me, that's how I'm acting. That's the age-old existential crisis of humanity from, across all civilizations. We have faced it. There's something within me which doesn't, even while knowing what is right, I still can't do it. And the answer in yoga is provided by yoga, is that the conditionings of the mind. So Duryodhana just said it. I can't do anything else about it. It's just the way I am. Arjuna didn't put it that way. He said, what is it that makes us behave this way? And how can I change it? How can I be better? And then Krishna answers him. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava, mahashano mahapapma, vidhyenam vairinam. He says, lust and anger, these are tremendously powerful. They have conditioned our mind. They are born of rajas. They are of insatiable hunger. If I act according to my rage or anger, will I be satisfied? Will I be peaceful forever after that? Absolutely not. You won't be. It might feel satisfactory for a moment, it will increase your unhappiness. If I give in to my lusts and passions, will I be fulfilled afterwards? No. It will blaze forth even more. So this is the thing. And then how do we overcome that? For that is the answer to the question, why has God put us in this world? For that purpose. So that when we have cleansed out our minds, and so that when it is a fact, what the Greek philosopher said, to know the good is to be good. It is possible when we have purified ourselves, to know the good will be good. Then what we know, what we study, we will be able to do in our lives with minimal struggle. Yes.
Is there, some of us do not understand the laws of causality, right?
Causality, yeah.
Some of us do. Is there inherently evil, and as opposed to inherently goodness? And the two of them always in history face each other. Out of that, good comes, a new good comes. Sri Lakshmi, the Devas and the Asura. And it's necessary that both are there.
Yeah. So that's not a way of thinking that is there in the dharmic religions. It's a more Abrahamic way of thinking. What has happened is, from a Vedantic perspective, this lack of understanding of causality. One word for that would be ignorance. So this is one of the aspects of ignorance. And this ignorance is what leads to evil. From not only Vedanta, in fact all the Indian philosophies, Buddhism also says the same thing. The root cause is ignorance, ajnana. Now this in the three religions, first of all in Zoroastrianism, and then in Christianity and Islam. I don't think Judaism has a devil. Does it? I don't think so. I haven't heard of it. So in Zoroastrianism, Christianity and Islam, this cause, which is the source of all trouble in personal life and in the world, is projected outwards and personalized as evil, as a reality, evil as a reality, as a separate reality. That's one way of dealing with it. But that kind of thinking, Vedanta doesn't agree. What Vedanta would say is that it's in all of us, and it's a continuum rather than black and white. If you do black and white, there's one way of dealing with it. If you do continuum, there's another way of dealing with it. If you do a continuum, from black to grey to pale white to absolutely pure. There's the entire from darkness to light. There's a whole range of. Then, for example, you can't condemn anybody as a person as entirely evil, or a happening in the world, or some kind of accident, something as entirely evil. You can't condemn. But there will be some mixture of something that's good and positive which comes out of it.
So there's not an ontological evil.
Yes, ontological evil generally is not in the dharmic traditions. Yeah.
It's just a phenomenal evil.
Yeah. This ontological evil, I guess you would trace it back to Zoroaster, maybe Zarathustra, who.
Yeah, I think I did not mean that. I meant something like something in the realm of action. We need that in the realm of action across history.
Yeah.
We need these two forces.
Right. So this is that's what you meant actually. This idea which is in your mind, it's an ancient idea. It goes back to ancient Christianity, Islam, but even before that, the precursors of Christianity and Islam. I can't say about Judaism because I don't know, but clearly the breakthrough which Zoroaster made was, instead of a variety of deities, let's just think about, this is in ancient Persia, just think about light and darkness. Ahura Mazda and Ahriman. Ahriman is, I shouldn't even take the name. It's he who must not be named. So, yes, Ahura Mazda is a force of light and fire. Often the Persians, the Zoroastrians are called fire worshippers, as one Zoroastrian told me in exasperation. We don't worship the fire. It's a symbol of light, of Ahura Mazda. So, from there, so ontological evil, there is a force in the cosmos, in communities, among nations, in each person. And then that force has to be overcome by the force of light. And Ahura Mazda is going to help you, or God or Allah is going to help you. And you must you must declare once for all whether it's there in Zoroastrianism. You must declare once for all whether you're on the side of Ahura Mazda or Ahriman. And in the end, Ahura Mazda is going to win. But it's going to be a terrible fight. You can see how this ontological evil, it's a very ancient idea, going all the way back to the Zoroastrians. But Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, none of the Indian religions think in that way. In Vedanta, evil is there, but evil is caused by ignorance. And so in order to overcome evil, one must overcome ignorance and know who am I, what is the reality here, know that. This gentleman, before I come to you, he has been raising his hand for a while. Yeah, but notice what I said. I said something which is tricky and subtle. The ultimate, the perfected, what did I say about them? They are beyond causality. One might not pay attention to that, but you're opening the gate for something quite dramatic there. The moment you say you're beyond causality, in general, Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and all of them would say, such people will never do anything wrong. Because of the long process of purification, spiritual practice, all the evil or most of it has been crushed out of them and their natures are good. So they're going to manifest goodness only. They're going to manifest the truth. However, it is also well understood, at least in Vedanta, in Tantra, in Tibetan Buddhism, that you cannot make laws for the perfected. Laws are for us. Laws are for us, the two kinds of people in between. Worldly people who are decent, moral, who have a good personal ethic, work ethic, they understand laws. And spiritual people, we are all spiritual seekers. We understand the importance of causality. The laws are also not for the absolutely instinctive, because they don't believe, they are not going to follow it. They are not interested in that until they learn with great suffering. The bleeding, the camel which was bleeding. But the perfected ones, you cannot make laws for them. Even it's understood in Vedanta for an enlightened being, Sthita Prajna, the enlightened one of perfect wisdom, Jivan Mukta, enlightened while living. It's a philosophical point that you cannot say now you're enlightened. So these are things that you have to follow now. You can't say that. Just literally they have gone beyond that. But then there is this little footnote to it, which would be what you're talking about. Is it possible that they might do some things which don't tally with our understood morality? You have to leave it open. That's why the Tibetan Buddhists have this idea of crazy enlightened people. The Dalai Lama was once asked about it. He also gave a nuanced answer. He says it's quite possible that they may be highly spiritual, but it's also equally true it doesn't matter to you. You're not supposed to follow them. Yeah. They might demonstrate something about spiritual life, which is somehow... So is it just morality? Is spirituality just morality? No, it isn't. There's something beyond that. So that might be one corner of it which they are demonstrating, but as he was very clear, you're not supposed to follow them. And Vedanta also is very clear about it. You're supposed to follow, the teacher is supposed to embody in his or her life the highest standards of ethics. And that's what we are supposed to follow, because otherwise it's harmful. It may not harm you if you think you are highly enlightened and beyond causality, but the rest of us are not beyond causality, and we will be harmed by such a poor example. The gentleman there.
From what I could understand, the question is, no pain, no gain, I've heard. So the camel trying to get something is going through pain. But hasn't the enlightened one at the last level also gone through something? So should we go through pain to get the gain, or should we not want the gain?
Yeah. You cannot, it is a good question. So there's a pain involved in going after something. And so if the pain is too much, then it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Yeah? Game theory will tell you that. A calculus you set up and it will tell you that. Yes. But the thing is, we can't stop. Vedanta will say you cannot stop because you are compulsively going to try to live. Compulsively you're going to try to be happy. You can't stop trying to be happy. You can be happy, you can try in different ways. One, in a hedonistic way, you can pursue pleasure and try to be happy. In a stoic way. Stoicism, by the way, is going through a great revival in the West, especially here in New York. Massimo is there and so on. So in a stoic way, you can try to, but still trying to be happy. And both have to undergo some kind of pain. And that's inevitable. Now what spiritual life tells you is, there's an intelligent way of going about it, and there's an unintelligent way of going about it. Unintelligent way is to keep on taking the pain and getting cheated every time. Not getting the gain. We keep on taking the pain. For example, I was reading Robert Wright. So he's written this book. He's a neo-Darwinist right here. He lives in Princeton or somewhere. He's written this book, The Evolution of God. Why Buddhism is true. Why Buddhism is true. It was on the New York Times bestsellers list and so on. So he says, I'm a evolutionary biologist. I'm a scientist. I understand the things which Buddhism is telling me from an evolutionary perspective. It says nature always has programmed us for her own ends to expect more pleasure than she is willing to give. So, whether it's a candy bar or any kind of sensuous pleasure, we feel it'll be tremendously good. It never is as good as you expected it to be. Most of the time, they have what you call a buyer's depression. Buyer's remorse, yes. You buy it, but it says the opportunity cost is there because you have bought it, and that means you have given up something else. You could have bought something else. And then what you expected from it is less than what you got. So he gives an example. For example, this is well known in evolutionary biology. He says this craving for sugar. Now, it made tremendous sense when we were in the savannas in Africa and living in the grasslands there. There was hardly any sugar available in natural form. You had to get a rare fruit or something like that which was rich in sugar, and you had to grab it when you got it. Sugar is essential for your functioning. But now we are surrounded by sugar everywhere. We still have that craving. And now it has become very unhealthy for us. But we can't give it up because the craving is there inside. Or any kind of sensuous pleasure. So nature has imparted it in us for reproduction. And then when we go through that, we feel it was not good enough, maybe it will be better next time. And that's exactly what nature wants. Nature wants you to think it will be great, and when you do it, it's not as great, but nature wants you to think that if I repeat it again, it will get better. Because nature basically wants that. Nature doesn't want you to be satisfied, either by sugar or anything else. If you get satisfied, you take one bar of sugar and you're satisfied, that animal is going to die. Nature wants you to live and continue doing what nature wants you to do. So Robert Wright says that all these things I know. I know what's underneath my cravings and I can't control it. But even by knowing all that, I can't do anything about it. I'm no different from the person who doesn't know evolutionary biology. But then he says, what Buddhism, spiritual practice, meditation, practice of moral life helped me to do was convert my knowledge into lived life. I'm actually able to do something about it now. Yeah. Anyway, straight answer to your question, no pain, no gain, correct, whether in worldly life or in spiritual life. And but there's no way of going back for us. We have to go through this. Vivekananda says, you cannot run away from the machine. You must learn how to work the machine and the machine will set you free. The machine of causality. You must learn how to work the machine. How to learn to work the machine is through ethical life, and then this selfless, from selfish ethics to selfless ethics, to there are higher practices of spirituality. Yes, gentleman there. Ignorance is at multiple levels. One is, as you just saw, we are all talking about ignorance of causality. Even though we know about it, we are ignorant in a deep sense that we don't follow it. We don't really believe in it, or it's not a living reality for us. That's one kind of ignorance. In Vedanta, the ignorance is supposed to be about your real nature, that you are Brahman, that everybody you deal with is Brahman. So as you said, you feel Brahman everywhere. Would it attenuate the effects of the ego? Yes. How is the ego attenuated? The effects of the ego are thinned out. How do you do that? By karma yoga. In karma yoga, from selfish action to selfless. I used to do everything for I, me, myself, strengthening the ego more and more and more. But now reverse it. Let me use the time and energy and resources of this little person for the good of many. That attenuates the ego. Bhakti does it powerfully. The ego comes to face with the personal God. This grand, majestic presence of the God of the universe. So if you have faith in God, then the ego automatically, humility comes immediately. Then attention, training the power of attention through meditation. Meditation can attenuate the ego by calming the mind. The ego thrives in a restless mind. And then the highest of all, I would say, is the path of knowledge, where you see that you are not the ego. Shankaracharya sings famously, Mano buddhya hankara chittani naham. I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the memory, I am not the ego. Literally, if you translate it, is I am not I. How crazy is that? I am the consciousness that is the witness of the ego. Ego is just a function of the mind. I am not the ego. Yeah, so these are the ways in which you thin out the ego. Yes.
Could Duryodhana's desire be influenced by Krishna?
Could be, but then it's coming now. Somebody asks, why doesn't God free all of us? So God could have just changed Duryodhana. You might just say the whole thing was a play of Krishna's Leela in order to instruct all of us. We see in ourselves a little bit of Duryodhana, a little bit of Arjuna. We are all of those characters. Some lady, you raised your hand at the back. Sure, that's a long debate. But I'll just tell you, whatever your concept of morality is, observe that the real struggle is there. Everybody has a concept of morality, and everybody finds it difficult. I can lower my level of morality, my concept of morality to the point where I find it easy, where whatever I like doing is moral. I will myself know that I'm not being true to myself, and I'm cheating then. So the moment I have a concept of morality, whatever it is, I'll find it's difficult. Why is it difficult? If it's my standard of morality, why is it difficult for me to follow it? Everybody finds it difficult to follow. That struggle. It's only when it's imposed, this is the standard of morality, then we rebel. Why this? Then we say morality is relative. So big debates about moral relativism, all that will arise. But all right, given all of that, you have your own standard of morality. Why is it difficult to follow? So that's what Sri Ramakrishna is pointing out, that our minds are so deeply conditioned, those impurities are there, and we are all doing it. You may question it, but the very fact that you are here is that you are seeking some kind of a higher life, a spiritual life. That itself, that struggle is the struggle to be a better person. So spiritual life starts with being a better person, a selfless person, a calmer person, and a more wise person. more loving person. I put in all the yogas there. The lady at the very back, did you have a question? You had raised your hand. It's true. If I'm traumatized, if I have... See, in basically any of these things which you say that it has reduced your autonomy of action, your degrees of freedom. That person is not as free to follow certain practices as the rest of us might be. All right, then help that person to the extent that they can. Medicine will be helpful, counseling will be helpful. But what they have found is our own autonomy is very important, which is what the distinction Krishna made between Duryodhana and Arjuna. Why is Duryodhana the villain and Arjuna the hero when they asked more or less the same question? Arjuna wanted to change, right? So, yes, you can have psychotherapy, you can medicate a person, all those will help. But nowadays, I think the most popular thing is what they call cognitive behavior therapy, where the person is vitally, crucially involved in his or her own therapy. I remember the psychiatrist in India, he had this very beautiful idea he says, the progress should be from patienthood to personhood to human excellence. You can't remain a patient. You must become a person again, and from person to human excellence. And he says his therapy, he says, I think as a doctor, as a psychiatrist, I cover the whole spectrum. I would like to help you from being entirely helpless, through medication maybe, I'll help you there. And then from moving from medication to counseling, from counseling to you take charge of your own life, and then you become a source of help to others. You go to that extent where you are helping everybody else. He would always give us the example. I mean, he had a PowerPoint presentation, he would show two examples. One, he would show a picture of Stephen Hawking. Another one, he would show a picture of, what's his name? He was here in Princeton. He won the Nobel Prize. The Beautiful Mind. John Nash, yes. So here's this person whose limbs don't work at all. He has this, cumulative this nervous disorder, degenerative nervous disorder, which is totally paralyzed, and yet his mind is ranging all over the cosmos with a devastated body. What a mind! You can range all over the cosmos and do tremendous groundbreaking work in cutting-edge physics, cosmology. Here is another man, John Nash, whose mind is devastated, schizophrenic. And yet he does work that gets him the Nobel Prize, even after all those, at those times the treatments were pretty crude. Even then he goes on doing maths all his life and economics. So from person, it can be done, even in very difficult circumstances. And to a level that's not only the same as the rest of us, far higher than the average of humanity. Yeah. Let me just go a little further and make a few comments and stop because we are run out of time. So all of this, then the next question would be, why doesn't God free us from the world? Then just free us from the world. Let God do everything and we'll be free. It doesn't work that way. In fact, he says God is doing that. This is the process. It's just that we want it instantaneously. It's done in God's good time over many, many lifetimes. There's a funny story of, I read it in Reader's Digest, that this man had heard God is so vast, so whatever a human, our money is like nothing to him. God is infinitely wealthy and so on. So he prayed and prayed to God, and God appeared before him, and he said, "What do you want?" And the man said, "Oh, not much. I just want 1 cent of your money," which is equal to several billions of our money. So just 1 cent from you, which will surely be billions of dollars for human beings. And God said, "Okay, wait 1 second." Wait a second, which might be millions of years. So God is freeing us. Sri Ramakrishna says He will free us when the disease is cured. When you are admitted to a hospital, we have a lot of hospital examples, analogies today. When you are admitted to a hospital, you can't run away. The doctor will not let him go unless his illness is completely cured. So the faster we become healthy, It's very interesting. The Sanskrit word and many Indian languages, the word for health is swasthya. Swasthya means being established in your real nature. And that's the word for health. Literally the word for health. Health centers are called swasthya kendra. So swasthya means centered in your real nature. That's health. Okay, last observation. Because we have some amount of freedom, whatever our circumstances, if we try to do the best that we can, it becomes better and better. But the whole goal is not to make it better and better. The whole goal is to be free of this cycle of of cause and effect.
How do we reduce that past karma?
The effects of past karma. Yes, you want a loophole. Yes. There's a story of a lawyer. I'm sure he was from New York. So he was an atheist all his life, and then he was critically ill. He was in the hospital, and his friend came to see him. And then he found, to his amazement, the man was lying on his bed, deathbed maybe, and reading a Bible carefully. And they asked him, "You are reading a Bible, boy? Suddenly, what are you doing?" And he said, "No, I'm working the case. I'm looking for loopholes." Because that's where I'm going now, so I want to see the whole loopholes in the law there. Yes. Spiritual, direct answer to your question, spiritual practice reduces the effects of past bad karma. The Holy Mother has said that if you do spiritual practice, like japa, like prayer, like good works for others, then whatever is coming to us, the bad effects of that are reduced. She said, where one would have lost a leg, one will feel a pinprick. Why would that be? That's illogical, right? Does God play favorites? Shouldn't God be perfectly strict with that? No. In Vedanta, in fact, why Vedanta? Any theistic religion. In Vedanta, what's the point of all of this then? Why are we at all here? And the goal is enlightenment, God realization. That's what's happening. The whole of life is driving us towards it. If you are on the straight and narrow path, that means towards God realization, then God is on your side because you are doing what God wants you to do. In that case, it won't do to scare you off with sudden burst of bad karma, And so God will be favorable. Things will go. But the moment you stray off from this side or that side, all of that bad karma is going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. So God will help us to stay on the path. If you stray away from the path, all sorts of things will kick in, which will again bring us back to the seeking. And you need not bring God into it at all. The Buddhist has the exact same logic without bringing God into it at all. It's just the way the universe is designed. It will force us towards enlightenment. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.